everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am solo today. Tony is out ice fishing. I will be ice fishing tomorrow, so want to make sure that we get the recording in today. But a busy week for the Chicago Bears in a very good way. Today, we are going to start off with all the updates from their head coach and GM search. Some people have been interviewed so far, get a little bit more into them, and also just going to give you guys the full list of each the GM and head coach candidates. And also at the end, I want to keep it clear that there have been some comments going around about Matt Nagy and how he treated his players, specifically Mitchell Trubisky. You don't want to miss this. It just came out today from a leaked source, so stay tuned for that. Also, Justin Fields is off the COVID-19 list. He is fully recovered from COVID-19, so want to wish him a shout out for getting well, and we hope he stays well. We hope it wasn't too bad for him. But let's get into it. Let's start with the GMs first. There were 11 GM candidates this year so far that the Bears have interviewed and requested. So there have been 3 that have been interviewed so far. That means 8 are still in request. We will get more into that for those who have been interviewed in a little bit. We just want to give you guys a quick list. Some of these people we've already gone over as well in our previous episode. So if you're more interested in deeper information, go to that. But Morocco Brown, director of college scouting for the Colts. Ed Dodds, vice president of player personnel for the Colts. Eliot Wolf, director of scouting for the Patriots. Strong say in players development for the Patriots. So definitely someone you want to look out for. Omar Khan, vice president of the Steelers, very smart guy, well put together candidate, helped build the Steelers' current roster, and he is known as the guru of keeping the cap under and being able to acquire better players every single year. That's why the Pittsburgh Steelers have had 15 consecutive seasons of winning football. And they're in the playoffs again this year behind Big Ben, a very banged up old Big Ben. Joe Schoen, the assistant general manager for the Buffalo Bills, helped with selecting the current Bills team, including the coaching staff and Josh Allen and a lot of the weapons that are around him, also helping bringing in Stephon Diggs. Rick Smith, former general manager for the Texans. Now everyone's like, whoa, the Texans. He was part of the good times of the Texans. DeAndre Hopkins, he drafted. JJ Watt, he drafted. And Deshaun Watson, he drafted. After he left due to family reasons, he had to walk away from football. The Texans roster kind of fell apart. So JoJo Wooden, a couple of new names or another new name is JoJo Wooden, the director of player personnel for the Chargers. That came out today. So definitely want to keep an eye out for that. He was a big person that brought in Justin Herbert and was a big reason why Justin Herbert's on the team. Okay. So then here are the 3 that have been interviewed that we're going to get into, and I'm going to try the name pronunciation again. Kwesi, Adofo-Mensah. Hope I got that right. I know it's somewhat close, folks. Please. I know some people are out there. Darius, I know you're out there, giving me you weren't giving me crap last time for it, but I tried. But he has been interviewed. I want to get more into him in a little bit. Glenn Cook, vice president of operations for the Cleveland Browns as well. He has been interviewed. And Champ Kelly, director of player personnel for the Chicago Bears. Bears going internal with an interview, has been interviewed. And then we have 9 head coaches that are currently circling around. No, Jim Harbaugh is not one of them. Just want to put that out there. So we have had Doug Peterson, who was interviewed this past Wednesday. We have Lesie Frazier coming up this Sunday. We have Brian Flores that's happening right now at Hallis Hall. I am filming this on January 14th, 2022 at 1:27 p.m. Central Time. He's been interviewed right now. He's up the road from me, so that's kind of cool to see. Or think about Todd Boyle, the defensive coordinator for the Bucks. Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator of the Colts. Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator for the Packers. Byron Leftwich, offensive coordinator for the Bucks. And Brian DeBall, offensive coordinator for the Bills. Again, a lot of these people that have been requested, we have discussed in our last episode. So if you're more curious to know more information about them, please go back. But we're only going through the interviewed candidates so far. So let's start with the GMs today. The first one that was confirmed interviewed was Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I'm going to probably say his name different every single time. So that's the last time I'm saying it, folks. Just want to put that out there. Again, I promise you, I tried finding the pronunciation for that. But what a name. Google doesn't even have a pronunciation for it. A little bit of background about him. He graduated from Princeton. Pretty smart guy then. He's the Browns' current VP of operations. So there's some good and some bad. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Worked very closely with Cleveland's current general manager in the last 2 seasons, Andrew Berry, in strategy in putting this current roster together. Obviously, there's been some situation. The Cleveland Browns aren't a bad team, but they weren't able to pull off the playoffs this year. They have the talent there. There's no doubt about it. The OBJ thing, kind of was a difficult situation. Obviously, he's doing very well with the LA Rams now, but he helped put together the Cleveland Browns roster. He also worked for the 49ers for 7 years prior to his time with the Cleveland Browns, and he went to 3 consecutive NFC championship, worked very closely with Jim Harbaugh. So if we are to bring in Jim Harbaugh, if this guy were to get hired and we didn't have a head coach yet, I'm sure he could persuade Harbaugh out of Michigan. Here's the bad, though. Really didn't have too much football experience. I know he's been in the league for 9 years now, but he was a big Wall Street portfolio manager before ever working in the NFL. I don't know how the transition exactly happened. I tried finding that information, so I apologize about that. Again, it's not even that bad. It's just that he isn't a player, or he hasn't been around. Like he never played in the NFL, which obviously a lot of these guys have some sort of tie to football these days. But the NFL is changing, and he could be a great candidate. No doubt about that. Way more good than bad. I just had to throw that out there for you guys. So let's go to the next guy that they interviewed from the Browns. That would be VP of Personnel, Glenn Cook. Also worked very closely with Mensah. I'm just going to say Mensah. We're referring to him. But he also worked very closely with Brown's current general manager, Andrew Berry, in putting together this roster as well. He's been in the NFL for 11 years, so a little longer than Mensah, but he started as a scout with the Colts in 2011, and he played college football at the University of Miami, Ohio. That's his alma mater. Fun fact, though, about him, he did play baseball at Miami of Ohio, and he played football, obviously, which he was selected by the Chicago Cubs in the 2009 MLB draft in the 46th round. A little bit of Chicago ties, kind of interesting. Maybe that might have a soft spot for him in regards to, wanting the Bears to do something. The team that gave him a chance professionally was the Chicago Cubs, and now the Bears are potentially giving him a chance as well. And then finally, the Bears went internal with this third general manager that they've interviewed, meaning with current director of player personnel, Champ Kelly. Now, I know a lot of Bears fans are happy about this. Champ Kelly is a very liked guy within the Bears organization. He has been with the Bears for the last 7 years. So right before Ryan Pace walked in the door, Champ Kelly, excuse me, I don't know where that came from. Champ Kelly was a part of the Bears organization. So he's been a part of this building of the roster. He's obviously brought in guys like Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson, Bilal Nichols. You name the young guys that are on this team that are talented through the draft that we've gotten. He's had his say in it. So he's built the team, and hopefully he can build and find the right coach that is going to suit this team. So he also worked as a college scout. So he has that advantage. He doesn't have a first round pick this year if he were to become the general manager, but he knows the pieces that he already has in place very well. He knows the strengths and weaknesses of those players and knows who to go out and get immediately. Not saying the other guys couldn't. It's just that he has ties within House Hall, sees a little bit more of what's going on. Let's go to the coaches really fast. The Bears interviewed Doug Peterson earlier this week, former Super Bowl champion with the Philadelphia Eagles back in 2017. Again, very similar. Just going to give you guys the quick notes that we had from our last episode. Very similar to Matt Nagy in regards to his play calling wise, not as a coach. 5 seasons with the Eagles, 1 standout season, 13-3 with the Super Bowl champs, 2 9-7 seasons where he did go to the 2018 wildcard game, which they defeated the Bears 16-17 at Soldier Field. Not going to say what game exactly it was, what it's called. And then 2019 lost in the first round the following season. So he's been to the playoffs 3 times. Matt Nagy went twice. 4-11 in his last season. Matt Nagy was 6-11 in his last season. 7-9 in Doug Peterson's first season kind of was a rebuilding year. Never had an offense above top 5 except 2016, 2017. And just overall, too similar to Matt Nagy. And that's why a lot of people, I don't think, want Doug Peterson. Coming as offensive coordinator, maybe, but I would rather have a really fresh offensive mind. I respect that he's won a Super Bowl. There's no doubt about it. Then obviously I want to hit on Brian Flores last. Like, I think that's the one that everyone's kind of wondering about. And I'm going to share some opinions on that of why. And I know the Bears fans are kind of split on it because a lot of players are coming out saying, kind of like Matt Nagy, Brian Flores was a little harsh in the locker room. We do like discipline here in Chicago, like Mike Ditka had, but again, that was a different time for football. So the guy before Brian Flores, we're going to talk about is Bills defensive coordinator Lesie Frazier. That's coming up this upcoming Sunday. Ex-Super Bowl champion with the Chicago Bears, knows the NFC North pretty well, obviously from playing, but also coached in the Vikings staff from 2007 to 2013. He was a head coach from 2010 to 2013, went to the playoffs in 2012, thanks to Adrian Peterson, but helped the Colts also win a Super Bowl 41 against the Chicago Bears as a defensive backs coach. So he is a very big defensive guru. Obviously, Buffalo's defense is top 3 in the league. So arguably number 1 in a lot of categories. Could help Sean Desai, mentor him, kind of make him a better better play caller in regards to the defensive side of things. But where's the offense at that point? The Bears would have to have a complete home run on the offensive side of the ball and getting an offensive coordinator for that staff if Bill Lazor were to not stay. So kind of a few things to keep in mind when it comes to Lesie Frazier. So he will be interviewing this upcoming Sunday. But here's what's weird is that the Bills did not accept the interview with Brian Daboll. So only one of their coordinators that the Bears have requested so far is currently being interviewed. And then finally, this is the one everyone wants to hear about. They're currently meeting with former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. Was a shock firing by the Dolphins, but I'm going to get into a little bit about Brian in his history. A little bit about him. He's 40 years old, so young guy, young mind, he's in pretty good shape too, could easily play with some of these guys on the field right now. He's been coaching since he was a graduate student in 2003. So he started coaching when he was 22 years old. If you think about it, at Boston College, he was a Patriots. He was in the front office as a scouting assistant from 2004 to 2005 for the Patriots, and then was a pro scout from 2006 to 2008. Then he decided to go into coaching under Bill Belichick from 2008 to 2018. 08 to 09, he was a special teams assistant. 2010, he was an offensive assistant and offensive and special teams assistant coach. 2011, he was a defensive assistant. 2012 to 2015, he was the safeties coach. And then 2016 to 2018, he was the Patriots linebacker coach. Won 4 Super Bowls as a coach. Sheesh, a lot of Super Bowls for a guy that has the experience of winning, knowing what a winning roster takes. So there's pros and cons to him. Now let's break down his time in Miami as a head coach from 2019 to 2011. He was 24-5, but he literally walked into a disaster in Miami. He was 5-11 in the first year. He won 3 out of the last 5, and Miami started to get things rolling, which they were like, okay, maybe, 2020, this thing could start to blossom a little bit. He built a great culture at first. A lot of players liked him. A lot of players liked the discipline. He got rid of a lot of guys at the beginning of his coaching career that he thought were toxic to the organization. Again, 4 Super Bowls, worked under Bill Belichick. Obviously, he knows a thing about culture in a team. Got rid of a lot of bad chemistry and built this team through discipline. He was 10-6 in 2020. Not a bad season by any means. The Bears were 8-8 that year. But again, playing in a tough division with Buffalo and New England, usually off year for New England. Buffalo just chose to be good and knocked Miami out of the playoffs. And then they were 9-8 in 2011. They were 1-7 through the first 8. This is where I'm a little concerned. They were 8-1 in the final 9. That's great. No doubt about that. I think that's great that they finished strong. But a rough start. He's had 2 seasons with rough starts, 2019 and 2021, through the first 8. And that one loss in the final 9 games of the season came to the Patriots, which would have put Miami in the playoffs or New England in the playoffs. So unfortunately, he was always 1 game shy. He can't close, and that's another concern for me. Strong defensive mind, though, the number 6 defense in 2020, number 15 defense in 2021, but the Dolphins were injury prone to the max. So being 15, losing a lot of your starters, and also just a weird start to the season says a lot. But who do we want? And I'm going to say this out of the current people that are interviewed. I'm not saying this. There are other people that I want, and I said it in the last episode as well. But out of all the people that we have interviewed so far, this is who I would take. For general manager, I would take Champ Kelly. And for head coach, I struggle to say this. Out of those 3, I would take Doug Peterson. I don't want him. I'm just saying that. So why not Brian Flores? And this is why I don't want Leslie Frazier. I think he's too much of a defensive mind. But also, this is where I want to just more so hit on why I'm forced to take Doug Peterson. Brian Flores, can never seem to close. And I kind of was hitting on that earlier. He was 1 game away the last 2 seasons. And then some players in today's game do not like his style of coaching, being hard with discipline, which in my opinion is, not what football's about. But, as we know, the taunting penalties the Bears got this year, unnecessary roughness on the quarterback. Now the NFL has changed. It's not so tough guy mentality. You're still hitting someone. You're legally able to go after and hit somebody. It's not the same though. So that's one thing that concerns me. And some of the personalities that are on this current Bears roster might not gel together with Brian Flores. The defense, I think, would gel well. The offense might be a little bit of a struggle. Peterson, though, let's go back to Peterson. He's a Super Bowl champion, and players minus Carson Wentz enjoyed playing for him. So I offensive mind, and that's what the Bears need. I'm just so afraid that he would turn out to be like another Matt Nagy. And that's just the vibe I'm kind of getting from that. So just want to put that out there. And then reason why I chose Champ Bailey out of the 3, he knows the organization. Players respect him. Other coaches respect him. He knows what's good and what's bad, what needs to happen in order to make this Bears team go back to that 2018 level. So I like him a lot. I think out of those 3 interviewed for sure. But again, a lot of requests are out there for head coach and GM. So there'll be more episodes coming up in the future. Now, I know I've been talking your ear off, and I really appreciate you guys sticking in, but the Matt Nagy comments I want to get to. So thanks to Shy Bears Latest on Instagram for posting these screenshots, by the way. The source I cannot find. But I want to just put this out there. A source said that Mitchell within the team. So this is coming from a player, an undisclosed player that I cannot find at the moment. And I apologize about that. He ripped on Mitchell Trubisky in front of the whole team, a source said. Nagy proceeded to charismatize Mitch. Wow, I'm not good with words, as you guys can't tell. My English teachers hated me. Mitch for being uncoachable and not throwing it to the proper guy in front of the whole team. A second source said, so that two different players are saying this. Nagy, like many coaches, often called out players. It was one of his tactics for maintaining accountability and challenging his team. In the Week 5 loss to the Raiders in London in 2019, a lot of people say that's where the Bears derailed in 2019. The offensive line felt the brunt of his wrath. The brunt of his wrath. Defensive players, including star outside linebacker Khalil Mack, were singled out too. It bothered some of them, especially on the defense, because Matt Nagy's offense couldn't get going and they kept them in the game. So Mitchell Trubisky was put in a position. And then here's the kicker as well. And I'm not going to read it. This is what I read back in 2019, after the 2019 season. I guess Mitchell Trubisky and Matt proposed, let's have a sit down. Let's work things out. Let's get this relationship back going. Mitchell Trubisky went to House Hall with notes to meet with Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy never showed up. Absolute clown, good riddance. Absolutely disrespectful to a guy who's trying to be great in this league, who got all the blame. And Matt Nagy put it all on him as well without saying it till the very end. So just very happy that George McCaskey cleaned out the general manager. Ryan Pace didn't really do anything. Ryan Pace could have done something, though, if he would have known about that. But Matt Nagy, I hope you never coach in the NFL again. That's all I got to say to that. So, folks, that is the updates from those interviewed. Brian Flores, again, is interviewing right now at House Hall. Do not expect an answer from the Chicago Bears on who the next head coach will be for probably a couple of weeks. They're probably going to want to go through everybody, and some people might get offers and be like, sorry, Bears, I'm not going to wait around anymore. So stay tuned for that. But with that, thank you very much for joining this Friday's episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Dick Brody, and we will see you guys next time.